Yo, 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 welcome to Woodward Wings. I am Satawa and I'm here with my man Flannel Sam. And thank you guys so much for the support on the last episode. We appreciate it so much. Our best episode in history of this program. Over 1,000 views, 30 likes, a bunch of comments. A lot of them were hate, but hey, we're not complaining. Whatever way you want to get down, you can get down. But we are here to give you the information and have a conversation. I would have loved to see a couple more comments down there to answer and to interact with. So if you guys want to start doing that, I would love that, and we will bring those up on the show. I was looking through before the show. There was a couple things that I'm going to bring up later in the show, but we'd love to get more interactive with you guys. So please drop something below. But let's jump into it. Obviously, I mean, a fitting end to the way that this season has ended would be, losing to a Maple Leafs team that couldn't care less about that game, weren't even trying, weren't blocking shots, weren't hitting. All you had to do was go out there and take care of business. You were the only team on the ice that cared, and then you go out there, you choke away a 3-1 lead in the third period, and then you let in a 6-on-5 goal with 30 seconds left in the game, and then you lose it overtime in 54 seconds. I mean, you can't sum it up any better than that.
No, and isn't it funny too? Let's all congratulate Justin Hull on his goal and assist in a game that mattered.
Yeah,
about
man.
Kiss. Just that's been, and honestly, I'm happy that they finished the season with more than the 79 points I was fearing. But if I even want to go back briefly to the Devils game, it's like, thank you, JT Compher, for your 11th goal of the season. Thank you so much playing against the Devils freshman team. Thank
Hey, people
you.
forget
Yeah.
about Game 81 JT Confer, man. Best player in the league.
Yeah,
Come on.
right. Thank you, Johnny Burgers, for four points in a 2 games when it didn't matter. When I think of the previous 72 or 74, he scored 20. It's just, that's the type of stuff that's almost. Oh, thank you, Alex Lyon, for that great performance against the Devils JV team when your save percentage on the year was like 896. Thank you so much. It's just, it was this whole week. While it was great to see them finish stronger, the Maple Leafs game was just, it was just too fitting. It was all just a nice little nut punch. There is no such thing as a nice little nut punch. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. And the real nut punch, honestly, is the fact that we now sit at 12th in the draft lottery. And if I'm not mistaken, we would have fallen further if we would have just stayed at 80 points. And that's kind of the trade-off of winning. Yeah, you're now you would have been below the Islanders, below the Rangers. You would have been below the Pens. You'd have been around the. You would have been picking in the top 10 easily. And I guess that could be looked at as, damn, maybe I would wish we would have lost those games, and got a little bit better draft position, brought in a more premium prospect in this draft. But there'll still be good players around that point in the draft. It's just, I personally would have liked to kind of tank those games, and like I personally am glad we lost to Toronto last night. I wish we would have lost in regulation.
That's
I wish we would have lost to the Devils. Like it sucks to be that guy, but at that point when the season was over, I wanted a better draft pick. And we talked about it in the beginning of the season too, on Wake Up Woodward, shout out, on how many points it was going to take to make the playoffs this year. And I told you before the season that you're going to need 90 at least,
yeah.
and that's what it was looking like. You needed we would have been in last year. I believe 86 was the lowest playoff team last year. So I knew there was going to be a jump into the 90 with the Devils being good. I mean, obviously Sean was warning about the Habs the whole offseason, and I think that it just really encapsulates the season of, we're there, but we got holes, and we're going to need some jumps from some players in this offseason.
There's it's a tough season to gauge because on one hand it's a failure, it's a regression, something that I don't think a lot of us really foresaw. Maybe some of us did, but I think our overall optimism and the overall linear progression of the Iser plan really carried us through to, I think most of us were expecting the playoffs. It was, but you're also happy about Casper, you're happy about Hansen, you're happy about Soderblom, you're happy about Edvinsson, but you're also disappointed in some players as well. Disappointed in some players that you can't really be too mad at, but you're still like, man, you could have given us more, especially down the stretch. It's a very tough season to judge.
Yeah, it really is, especially obviously Lalonde, took us down the garbage chute to start the year, and then McClellan pulled us from the ashes. And I think that really encapsulates the season and kind of makes it tough to judge. But we are going to go super minuscule in this episode. This next segment that we're about to get into is who needs to take a jump and what those jumps look like for this team to be in the playoffs next year, to possibly be competing in a playoff series, just with who's here right now. We're not going to talk about the free agents. We're not going to talk about what can be on this team. We're going to talk about what is on this team. And I want to start off with a player that I think we both agree on has had a little bit of a slightly disappointing second half of the season with the way that he was looking in the first half of the season, and it's Lucas Raymond. He had just under 80 points, didn't finish at a point per game, just below 30 goals as well. And in the second half of the season, you just didn't see it. And what I mean by it is that factor that made Lucas Raymond so special in the beginning of the year, where you just not 90 feet or 200 feet. I mean, the whole ice. He is making play after play, defense, offense, passing, break-ins, breakouts, anything that you could be asking for him, he's doing at an elite level. And that's why we got into those conversations. Lucas Raymond is a top 10 winger at his position, even at 23 years old. And he's still there. He's on the cusp of there. He probably dropped down a couple slots because of not playing as consistent. But the potential is still there. And I need a jump of I want 30 goals. That's only 4 more goals. I want 30 goals. I want him to have a little bit more of a killer in him. And when he has that chance to put the kill shot into teams, he scores and he makes that Patrick Kane level play. I need that. The second thing is I want 85 points. Actually, I want a little bit above a point per game. I want him to have a consistent season. I want him to continuously, and I know he dealt with the line juggling. I do. But that's not on him. I think that next year, even if he has Larkin and Casper, Larkin, Danielson, Larkin and a free agent, I think that this is a very achievable goal.
Okay, so you said 30 goals and 85 points. I like that. I would agree that those are good benchmarks. One of the ways I see him hitting those benchmarks, though, is I need a heck of a lot more than 43 non-power play points. The previous year, he actually had 56. Give me that again. Give me 56 points that weren't generated by the power play. I've got a really crazy stat about Lucas Raymond. It's flattering and not at the same time. 36% of Lucas Raymond's points this year were on power play assists, which is great, but the 5-on-5 was so bad.
That's pretty damning, I can't lie.
There's a little bit of Lucas Gostis. I'm kidding, but you understand what I'm saying. He didn't score as many goals as we would have liked. He took a step back in that. The 5-on-5 was a problem with every line, as you've said, including the top one, including Lucas Raymond. And 80 points is a fine season, but one of the stories of this year will be a little bit of a power play merchant and didn't step up at the end of this season, whereas the end of last season, he really did show something when the team needed him. And this year, when the team needed him, he just wasn't there at the level you needed him to be.
Yeah, I agree, and let's get even more granular. I would like to see for his 5-on-5 points to be. What'd you say the percentage was again?
36% of his points this year were on power play assists.
That's crazy. I would like to see, because I'm assuming with his goals in there as well, he's looking at around probably a 45% power play. 50% power play point percentage, something like that.
37 out of 80, so whatever, about 45%, yeah.
Yeah, so about a 45%. I'm looking for him to go 55% on. I feel that's too big of a jump. No, fuck it. 55% even strength points to power play points. I want to see him take a 10% growth in 5-on-5 points, and I think that having a actual third guy on their line who can actually produce at a high level, I think that will do the trick for him.
That's fair. Like I said, as many non-power play points as the previous year. That would be 56 as opposed to 43. So we need more from him in the 5-on-5. There's no excuse for a team to be so good on the power play, but yet they're one of the best teams in the NHL in the power play, but in 5-on-5, they're basically the Blackhawks for lack of a better
Yeah,
term. But you understand what I mean.
I do. And we're gonna give Lucas Raymond his flowers, though. He deserves it. He had a good season,
He did.
another season of linear growth. Even though we see that he is a little bit power play dependent, he becomes the first Swedish U23 player to hit 80 points in a season since Nicholas Backstrom in 2009 and 2010.
Man, now I
So,
kind of feel like
st-
feel like I
so
should.
still
Yeah,
very impressive
yeah.
season from the Swede, and we still got to give him his flowers. I expect another big jump next year, and we'll get more into that close to the season. I'm sure he's going to have a big off season, trying to get a little bit more weight on his shoulders like he did last season. It looked like it made a difference this year. He looked to be a little more comfortable in those physical situations. Hopefully that transfers over to the next year. A real bright spot, though. Let's talk about a real bright spot. Marco Kasper, among rookies since January 1st, rookie forward since January 1st. He is fourth in points, first in even strength points, first in goals, first in even strength goals, second in plus minus, second in blocks, third in hits, fourth in faceoff wins, and fifth in shots on goal. Marco Kasper, please, please have a good offseason. Please work on your body. Make that jump that Lucas Raymond did. Add 15 pounds to your body. And I expect you to take a ginormous jump. I expect 55 points, 60 points from Marco Kasper next year. I expect for him to be a very good, solid two-way center. I believe he's going to stay at center. I have a very good feeling about that. He's looked great there, looks extremely comfortable. And I think that I just want to see him continue to look like a top six option in the future. Like that, just keep taking that linear growth path. I'm not going to ask for something ridiculous. I'm not going to ask for him to go all the way up to a point per game. He's been at around 0.66 since points per game since January 1st, which is really good for a rookie. I want to see 0.75. I want to see something around there. I want to see a little bit more of a jump, and I want to see him take that step in the D zone. I want to see him start really taking control of the breakouts and picking up loose pucks and finding that avenue to get out of the zone.
I'll tell you what. I love everything you just said, and a lot of my positive factions of my Red Wings mental health are almost entirely tied to Marco Kasper, among others, of course, but he's been a shining light in what was, in a lot of ways, a bleak season. He's one of those guys who this year, unlike a lot of the team, he wasn't a power play merchant at all. He scored the vast majority of his points even strength. And
Yeah, because he was on the second power play.
Yeah, you mentioned too, like the other sets, like hits and whatnot, where he ranks amongst rookies. That's incredibly impressive. But to your point, it's funny because I said this on a Wake Up Woodward. On one hand, rookie season, I have zero complaints. Give him all the flowers, give him all the applause. I never want to see him with under 40 points in a season ever again. And I don't think that we will. I think that 55 sounds like a good number. Maybe being the legitimate second C next year is actually legitimate. Like you said, got to put on some muscle, got to work on being better and more viable defensively. But we've seen him actually throw his body around maybe more than you'd expect for somebody doesn't have a ton of size. So Marco Kasper, I expect a big leap from him as well. And I also wouldn't shock me if he had more power play production.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And one of the big things for me when I was looking through like all the stats for all the players and I was making these evaluations were Marco Kasper is one of the few people on this team that has a plus.
Yeah. I
He
mean,
is +1. And on a team where your top two, three lines, majority of them are -15, as in Larkin, Raymond, Tarasenko, Cat, all of them -15. Kasper, +1. I
it's
mean,
not perfect stat, but it's telling.
it,
He was
it's telling.
impactful.
When
He
you
was
guys,
very impactful.
when Kopp, Edmondson, and Kasper are the three guys on your team that are positives, and they're all very good two-way players, I think that's telling of like where the issues are on this team. And that leads me right into this next player. It's Dylan Larkin. And what I want to see from Dylan Larkin is I want to see him. I couldn't give a shit about the points. I'm so sick of points being in the conversation with Dylan Larkin. I don't need him to get points. He's going to get points. I want him to improve that first line plus minus.
Okay.
That's on him.
No,
He's
fair.
taking the scoring weight right now. I need someone on that line that can take the weight and be that second scoring option and let Dylan Larkin focus on being a good two-way center because minus 15 under your first line is not okay. That is not okay. You are a net negative 15 every single time you step on the ice. It's not okay. Dylan Larkin is better defensively than he has showed this year. I truly believe that. You've seen in the past. And I think that just a real, even if it's David Perron level that the 2 years ago that he gave you on that first line, you need something, some value there where you can get that line back to being a net positive because you can't have your first two lines both being net negatives. That's not a winning strategy. It's why we have the best power play in franchise history, but the worst penalty kill in franchise history. That doesn't work. That
No,
just doesn't work.
it's such a it's odd, it's maddening, it's sometimes scintillating, but sometimes makes you want to pull your hair out. I mean, we know how this season has gone, and with Dylan Larkin, it's very interesting because I give more of a shit about points than you do. I would like to see him get at least a point a game because we saw it his last couple of years, and we've seen that
I
at
just think
least.
it will come. Like I think it's just
That's fair.
it's
That's
in
fair.
there already, and I don't think there's anything you need to unlock. I just think you need to put him with the right players. Like Cat, the last 2 years, he's kind of put down numbers. This year, he finally finds his groove, finds good line mates, has some rhythm, and finds some rhythm on the power play. I think that's always happens for players. They just need to be around the right guys. And I'm sorry for cutting you.
No, you're good. I think what you're saying and saying very well, by the way, is just that there's a lot of context to points. There's a lot of even context to why he wasn't as productive. There was a lot of fluctuating on that one of the wings positions, as it seems like damn near all the time. There wasn't a whole lot of consistency, and Dylan Larkin still at this point in his career is probably asked to take on too much of a load. And some people even say that he was playing a little bit hurt, but that's more speculation. He's got to impact the game a little bit more, though. Negative is not okay. And again, plus minus isn't a perfect stat, but in terms of so many of your top players being negative, you just don't see that amongst winning hockey teams. You just don't. Trust me, for all of you guys watching, look at all of the plus minuses of the best teams. A lot of pluses amongst the best players, and defensively, physically, he's got to be better. He's got to be better overall. I think he would tell you that. And I think next year is it's a big offseason to get more competent players just on the roster and maybe even a star. But we've talked about that. I'm sure we'll talk about it more. But it's a big offseason for him as well because there was a bit of a regression over the last couple of years. And as a team, they had a regression this year. I'm not saying that it's just a perfect correlation. Obviously, Larkin isn't the problem, but is he the solution? At least what they're asking him to do. That's the question. That's been the question about Dylan Larkin for what seems like 4 years now.
Yeah, and I think just the where we've landed is he's playing in too big of a role for what
100%.
type of player he is, and that's truly a shame because his contract isn't a lot of money. I mean, for the value of player you're getting there, like he is a value at his contract point. You just need to like move him down on some roles and get him into a more comfortable position where he can produce that point per game level. He can be there. He just needs the support to be able to do that, just like Cat does.
Sure. Hey,
And all right, so to the next. So what type of jump are you looking for? And we're gonna package these three. Okay, we're gonna go with the Seider, Edvinsson, and Johansson pipeline. The three defensemen showing a bunch of potential on this roster. And you can go ahead and you can take lead on this one. I'm curious what you got to say.
All right, so you're talking about the leaps from Seider, Edvinsson, and Johansson. All right, so, God, I don't have too much of a problem with Seider. If you're saying he hasn't progressed to being a Norris Trophy guy quite yet, that's fair. If you're saying that he hasn't provided enough offense, that's also somewhat fair. Even though it's not quite what we ask, you'd still like to see a little bit more after a 50-point rookie season. But with him, I think it's more about insulating him more. It's about putting more competent people around him. It's like getting that perfect veteran in the offseason, either put on the second line or first.
Yeah.
Maybe. That's more my feeling with Mo Seider, because even though this isn't a perfect stat, he was top 5 in the NHL in points, and not points, hits plus block shots. Not perfect, but that's a very telling number. With Simon Edvinsson, if you're just looking for a number, which isn't, again, not perfect, but I'll say get into the top 25 in the NHL in a hits plus block shots and maybe show a little bit more offensively. Is that too much to ask? I don't know. Simon Edvinsson, when you talk about the softness of this team, I don't really think that applies too much to Edvinsson. I think he's willing to throw his body around, and he's just a big dude. He's got the stature to be able to do that. And with Johansson, I would say be either I would say I would be okay if Johansson next year is on a line with, say, Ben Sherratt or somebody like that, and be there for about every game. If that makes sense. It's hard to quantify. I'm not sure if he's like a top 2 pairing type of guy, but Johansson is the type of guy who I project to be a really good depth defense person who you're like, he's your third line defenseman. That's amazing. I think that's what, I don't know if he's going to be there next year, but I think that's what he projects to be.
I agree. I think that those are 3 very good outlooks on those 3. I think that Seider, all I want to see out of Seider is just to continue to grow in your vision. Okay. And I know that's like a complete like nitpick of him, but I want to see him making better reads. There's some times where I feel like he gets in this Sherratt mindset, and Sherratt is extremely aggressive. And I feel like later in the season that kind of got to Seider a little bit. It kind of made him be out of position sometimes. I just want to see him just, make sure there's not sticks in front of the net. There's a couple times he got beat backdoor this year, just wide open guys. Like, I want to see that. I want to see him take a step in terms of breaking the puck out of the zone. I want to see him become a more of elite passer out of the D zone. And then offensively, I just want to keep seeing him consistently grow as he has over the last 2 years. He's continuous. He was never supposed to be a power play guy. He's grown into being that top guy on the power play. He's continued to grow. He's made a couple great shots this year that were absolute blisters. And so I have faith that he can grow offensively. I'm not expecting some huge growth. I just want to see him be a consistent top guy on the first power play. In terms of Edvinsson, I do want Edvinsson to be more physical. Edvinsson is in the 68th percentile in hits in the NHL. Mo Seider is in the 96th percentile. Okay, I think that is showing a pretty good disparity in this team, and I think that shows how the 2 lines have different mindsets, I guess, because Simon Edvinsson on one hand is plus on the season, and Seider isn't, and I think that's because that first line has such an aggressive mindset because of Sherratt, and because Sherratt is the veteran, that he has the reins, and I don't want that. I want Seider to have the reins because Seider, as himself, is a very stay-at-home, smart defenseman, and I want him to take the reins and have the control to do that. And I want Edvinsson to become that second Bash Bro at the blue line. They need that. They need him to be hitting like Sherratt's hitting, not to the level of aggressiveness, but they need him to be out there bashing bodies. He is a big presence. When there's a scrap, Edvinson's always in there. He's always giving it to guys, and I have no problem with that. I want to keep seeing that. And then I think you were the perfect cap on Johansson. I want to see him be a third-line defenseman for years to come. I think that putting him on the third line is beautiful. That's a great third-line piece, and I think you're just looking for one more defenseman to kind of add to the stick.
Yep.
The production I am happy about, though, because you got to hit some guys who, if they play the same way they played this year, I'm going to be happy. Okay? The first one is Alex DeBrincat. Okay? If he can hit 39 goals next year again, you'll hear zero complaints from me. That is his job. I don't care about his plus-minus necessarily. I care about him scoring goals.
Yep. 39 goals. There's nothing negative I can say. I guess if there's one negative, and it's not on DeBrincat, if you would have, if somebody would have told you before the season that Alex DeBrincat would have had 39 goals, where would you think this Red Wings team have been? Definitely playoffs. 100%.
Yep.
But my point with that is not to stick the knife in more. It's to be like Alex DeBrincat did his job. And he's a guy who had 26 non-power play goals. And last year he had 27 goals total. He did his job. He was, for all intents and purposes, 40. He's exactly what you acquired him to be. No complaints about Alex DeBrincat. There should be no complaints about Alex DeBrincat.
No, you're going to hear none from me. Another one on this list I have is Peter Mrazek. In his limited time here, he was unbelievable, and I expect him to be the starting goalie headed into next year. And I'm pretty happy about that, to be honest. I think that he is a step up from Talbot. If Koso really isn't ready, which we'll get into that in a little bit, I think that that's the best option, and I think it also gives you the opportunity to show him off so that you can flip him at the deadline for actual capital. You're going to do what you did with what the San Jose did with Wallman with the Red Wings. You're going to see the Wings do the same thing with the Blackhawks as they flip Mrazek at the deadline and get positive assets for him. And I think that's going to be a very good thing that happens throughout the
Yeah, so
season.
Peter Mrazek could end up being a way more important puzzle piece than any of us ever thought, when many of us, not you, by the way, to your credit, were like, Peter Mrazek, okay, big deal. You were a little bit more big picture than all of us. And he was. The question about Mrazek, honestly, was always, is he bad or was he in Blackhawks hell? I mean, Blackhawks is hell right now. I know they're trying to build something, but they're one of the worst teams in the league. He was good. It was a very small sample size, but he's someone who has done a lot of good things for the Red Wings back in his prime, and he's still got something left in him. I agree with you that it's not what we want, but if we're choosing between Talbot and Mrazek, I think that Mrazek could be more consistent. With Cam Talbot, there were just too many games where he would let in numerous softies, and then
Yeah.
there were other moments where he would stand on his head 3 games in a row. But I think the bad, I don't want to say it outweighed the good, but there were times where you really needed Cam Talbot and he just wasn't there. And Peter Mrazek, he tried to be, he just unfortunately went down.
Yeah, I mean, he was playing terrific. He was undefeated as a starter. He was,
That's
below
crazy, actually.
below 2.5 goals against per game, above a 9.1 save. Like, he was playing really, really good hockey, and I'm excited to see what he can do next year. The big question, I saw you guys talking about this on Woo the other day, is how do you fix the soft issue? And I purposely didn't bring up Elmer Soderblom in the take a jump category because I wanted to mention him here because he is huge. He has great hands and he's showing more offensive game than we could have imagined. And I think that's fair to say. But one thing I didn't see enough of is just him just going at guys and just being that Brady to Chuck, being that Matthew to Chuck, and just dominating the game with your physical presence. He is so big out there, but just at times I feel like he's a little bit stagnant to move the weight around to really hit some guys and send a message. And I think that does come with time. But I need it. This is part of the issue. There's a reason why we struggle in March so much. It's because when the games turn into this playoff style where there's all these hits and it's this transition game and it's whoever can get these A grade chances when they're so limited, and we need Evanston to be more physical. We need Soderblom to be more physical. We need more physicality because we can't be playing against these teams that aren't necessarily known for their physicality and being out physical by them.
Well, this is where, and yeah, the Soderblom thing, I think what you're saying, and I would agree with it, is that he's by no means the problem, but he could actually be a big solution, especially on your third line, and that could be huge. That could be a big part of his game because he has the type of frame that just isn't typical. But in terms of the softness thing, it's not something that bothers me as much as some when you look at soft versus tough in a vacuum. My biggest issue is that this Detroit Red Wings team just embodies softness, and all you really have to do, besides watching them, of course, is to just look at where they rank in certain categories and look at certain trends during this season. When they have the man advantage and everything's easier, man, they're fantastic. Lucas Raymond is one of the best point scorers in all of hockey. Like stuff like that. Not singling out Lucas Raymond, but you understand what I mean. They're a great power play team. But on the 5-on-5, when things get a little bit tougher and, especially going into March, more physical defenses, more playoff atmospheres, more teams playing for their playoff lives, they just were awful this year. They were the Blackhawks more for a lack of a better term. And of course, on the PK, when you needed toughness, you needed effort, they were historically bad. And to really put the cherry on top is it's like, okay, after the Montreal game, Thank you, Red Wings, for that 3-1-1 finish. Thank you, Red Wings, after that terrible stretch that, for all intents and purposes, took them out of it. Then they go 6-2-2 to end the year. It's like, thank you for that. I really could have used more of that earlier, but it's just, they're a team. They're like a paper tiger. When everything is to their advantage, they thrive. When at the end of the year they had these meaningless games, they win. But against the Canadians, for example, a do or die, they shriveled. And 5-on-5, they shriveled. PK, they more than shriveled. They were just awful. So that, to me, is where you can almost quantify softness with just what I said.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the only way to fix it is by becoming more of a physically dominant team, and that is by improving your depth pieces, because you're not going to have Raymond and Larkin and Cat. Like, that's not going to be who sets the tone for you. You're going to have Sider, Evanson, and then you're going to have to bring in some guys like Smith, Mott, like that bunch. They're not good enough. Berger, and all of them should be gone. None of them are NHL fourth liners. They aren't good enough. It's just how it is.
No, absolutely not.
And it's frustrating too, because you were just seeing them play like three lines shorthanded for the last 2 months of the season, and it was kind of ridiculous. I can't lie.
Yeah, no, it most certainly was. And to be a more tough team moving forward, first of all, I know Sean Baligian always says toughness is a choice, but it's not that simple. You mentioned, I think it was a really good stat you brought with the Simon Hedvinson in terms of the percentiles of just hitting. Need to bring those up, and I think that kind of correlates with my ask of him being in top 25 of a hits plus block shots. I think that alone would make them a more physical team. Elmer Soderblom really realizing that he could be just a menace on the ice. That could be a huge part of it. And
yeah, Soderblom's 40 in the 40 percentile for hits.
That's not good enough.
That's not even remotely good enough.
I'm not going to kill him for it, because he had a very abbreviated season, a season that I think he didn't even know he'd ever have at some point. So I'm not going to kill him for it, but next year it's a priority. But also, and I know we're going to do a lot more of this, so this is just a very preliminary thing. I've got a name that I want the Red Wings to pursue in the offseason. I'll just say one name. We'll break it down more later. Bring me Cody Ceci. I think that would be a huge addition, at least to the defense and the physicality. Those are some things I think will greatly improve that next year.
Yeah, he should really help with the Stars run this
he will.
This year. But let's talk about some actual positives here, because I'm tired of talking about the sadness that the end of the season brought. Let's talk about my godson, ASP, in North America and MBN. Shout out. They are set to make their debuts tonight in Rockford. And, man, I cannot be more excited. I can't lie. I was going to go to the game when I saw that they were in North America, and I thought they were playing in GR. I was going to go and drive up to the game, and I was pretty bummed. I can't lie. I was very excited to go see ASP play for the first time, but it'll have to wait. What are your expectations for these two in the AHL, and do you expect either of them to be on the opening day roster? And if they're not on the opening day roster, do you expect them to be on the NHL roster at any point next season?
I don't think I'll just call him MBN, because I think that's going to be his name moving forward. I don't think that he will be on the opening day roster next year, but with ASP, and I understand, and I know telling you this, you're going to understand what I mean. Was there a part of you, and I'm not saying that he has to do this, does he have, even if it's slightly poor man's, like a Lane Hudson, does he have some Lane Hudson in him?
Oh, no doubt. He's just bigger.
Fair.
But he's bigger and just has not the explosive skating ability that Lane Hudson has. Like when you see those, like Lane Hudson and Quinn Hughes, like they're smaller guys. Like they have those small guy wheels. ASP's got some wheels, but not to that level. I think that's why, when I wanted to compare him, he's more of a Walmart Cale Makar, because he has the size, than a Walmart Quinn Hughes, if that makes sense. Just because the 100%. Body type, the build, and the way that he's more of a scorer, like how Cale Makar is. he's got that elite vision, but he's got more of an offensive upside than for in terms of goals than like a Lane Hudson would have.
Okay, yeah, because Lane Hudson was, I think he only had 6 goals. He was, I mean, one of the best distributors in all of the NHL as a rookie. But I think what you're telling me is you could see ASP be at his peak, maybe even 20.
I mean, I think that he's gonna go through some rough stages. I think that he's going to be in the NHL next year.
I agree.
It may not be on the opening roster. I do think it's very good. It sucks that we weren't able to get him in Detroit this year. I still would have loved that. I'm not backtracking on that point. But what I will say is when they came over on Wednesday, it was pointless for them to go play for the Wings. I would rather have them go play in a couple AHL playoff series, as the Griffins are one of the best teams in the AHL, and go experience playoff AHL hockey and have that be the way that you're getting entered into professional hockey in North America. I think that it's going to be very beneficial for them. And I think that I expect a lot for them. Michael Bronson Nygaard, he had a great playoffs in the SHL. He really was kind of getting like played around with, wasn't really getting on like the minutes he was getting last year. And then in the playoffs, he started to explode, really started to play well. And so he's a playoff player. He's a big guy, a physical guy who also has some nice offensive skill to him. So I think that a year in the A is going to be extremely beneficial to him. And then you're going to see the fruits of that labor opening night 2026 for the Red Wings. I would expect that at MBM. For ASP, I would expect him to be on the opening day roster.
Yep.
I really would. I don't want to be a slappy about that, but I just know the quality of this kid. He's so good, and I know he has to make that transition to the ice. But to me, that's something that you can do in a summer. That's something you can do in an AHL playoff series. That's something you can do in the preseason. There's probably 15 organized hockey games that he will play at a pro level before opening night 2025 to get him onto North American ice. And I think that there is no reason why that's not enough games.
Yes, you're preaching to the choir on that one. And I think we got time for one more little segment, and then we got to vacate for B2E. But what do you got?
All right, quick run through.
Yes.
Kosa will be ready. I'm done with this, okay? Kosa will be ready. He has been in the AHL for 2 years, okay? He might not start on the opening roster, but once we trade Mrazek, he will be there. He will be getting starts. He will have more than 10 starts in the NHL next year. I can guarantee you that. There's no doubt in my mind. He is good enough. He's been in the AHL for long enough. They want to see him complete a playoff run, which I understand. But I'm done with the Kosa's not ready stuff. There have been goalies in the past who have been called up way earlier in their careers, showing way less than Kosa has. Enough with the Kosa isn't ready talk. I'm done with it, and it's honestly pissing me off.
Nope,
shout out to Lombardi. Lombardi has been absolutely killing it since he came back off injury, showing real promise. I believe he has 19 points in his last 16 games. He has absolutely been a load, looking like he has real NHL upside, which is something that people questioned in the past. So that's another guy that the Red Wings could be getting in the next year or so. Who will be ready from the AHL next year? In my opinion, Danielson, Mazur, possibly Lombardi, Kosa midseason, ASP.
Yeah, I can't really think of anybody else. Maybe another defenseman, like Wallander.
Maybe if Wallander or Lagerson figures it out, but I don't have the highest feelings towards them. So I personally am not counting on either of them. If one of them do make the roster and are showing upside, that's fantastic. But for me right now, I'm looking to bring in a free agent defenseman to fill that last one.
Oh,
all right,
absolutely. Go ahead.
Yep, I know you agree with that. All right, last one, real quick. Stanley Cup prediction before they start today, because this is going to drop on Saturday. Who do you have winning the Cup final?
Who do I have winning it? Oh, my goodness. This is maybe this is a fool's errand. I'm going to go Dallas. And your guy, Jamie Benn.
I do like it, and I do love Dallas, but I don't know. Something about their decor is kind of like giving me the irks a little bit. Even though it is very good, their offense is very good as well. Give me the Avs. I think that Avs are going to beat Dallas in the first round, and they're going to win the title. I just think that they made such great moves this entire season, even dealing with the Rantanen contract and having to trade him. they still got a value in that trade. They've looked unbelievable since they also picked up Brock Nelson. And then I really like Mackenzie Blackwood, who they have in net. He's a big-time goalie.
Man, and that's what they were missing. Even when they were good, you know what? I'm not flipping, but I like your choice as well. And what would that do to McKinnon and Makar's legacies? They're already set, but another one?
I mean, I think it brings McKinnon into and Makar, both of them easily into the top 10 conversation. And I think that as someone who believes that both of them are in their careers will be above Ovechkin when it's all said and done, I think for McKinnon and Makar, winning it without Rantanen and just showing like you are the quality, like you are the dudes. I think that really shows the NHL that you are on a different level.
It would be really exciting. I'll say that, and I'd actually prefer for you to be right than me, if that makes sense. But we'll see. But is that a show?
Yeah, we'll see. Well, and there's another episode of Woodward Wings. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Justice Satawa. That is Flannel Sam. Make sure you like, subscribe, and drop a comment on stuff you'd like to be asked, and we will catch you in the next one. Peace.